Mayor Mamdani's proposed budget has scared a lot of people. Homeowners, co-op and condo owners, building owners.
March 10th, a Tuesday. Steps of City Hall in Lower Manhattan. Councilwoman Sandy Nurse is there. So is Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. So are the labor organizers who spent the previous year knocking on doors in the outer boroughs. 11 other council members have put their names on the paper. They're launching a bill called INT 304. The minimum wage in New York City is $16.50 an hour. And the mayor, the man who won this job 4 months ago on a slogan so specific it had a dollar sign and a year in it, is not on those steps. He's inside. What comes out instead is a written statement from a spokeswoman. The administration is reviewing the legislation. Reviewing it. Back up 5 months. October 2025. A state assemblyman from Queens is running for mayor. He has a phrase he uses everywhere. Rallies, debates, subway platforms, doorsteps in the Bronx. By 30. He says it plainly. Right now, if you are earning a minimum wage in this city, you simply cannot afford to continue calling it your home. We have to change that. Voters believed him. Turnout was historic. He wins in November. On January 1st, Zohran Mamdani is sworn in as mayor of New York City. On March 10th, his slogan finally becomes a bill with a number on it. Sandy Nurse writes it. 12 council members co-sign it. They stand on the steps and say, the math ain't mathing. The mayor is reviewing it. 13 days later, Gothamist goes back and asks again. A different spokeswoman answers this time. Different name, same sentence, slightly rearranged. To address the affordability crisis, Mayor Mamdani believes every New Yorker deserves a living wage. As the administration reviews this legislation, he remains committed to using every tool available to bring down the cost of living and deliver real relief to working people. 2 spokeswomen, 2 weeks apart, 1 sentence shuffled like a deck of cards. I have been reading political statements my entire adult life, and I will tell you exactly what that is. It's language built, so it cannot be quoted against you later. It says he believes in a living wage. It never says he supports this bill. Gothamist wrote it plainly in that same piece. The mayor who campaigned on the promise of a $30 minimum wage has yet to take a public stance on the council proposal. Fox News Digital asked a narrower question. Not what does he believe? Will he sign it if it reaches his desk? They never got a response. Meanwhile, Sandy Nurse is saying the quiet part at full volume. On those steps, she put a number on it. A worker at $17 an hour takes home roughly $500 a week. She called it a weekly crisis. In New York City, $500 a week is a household choosing between the electric bill and the pharmacy. More than 1 million people in this city earn the minimum wage. That's over a quarter of the entire local workforce. The bill is on the table. The sponsor is shouting. 1 million people are waiting. The mayor is reviewing. Now here is the honest version, and I'm going to give it to you because the honest version is actually worse than the cheap version. There is a real legal problem underneath all of this. In New York, the minimum wage is not set by the mayor. It's set in Albany. The state legislature controls it. Any minimum wage increase for New York City would need the legislature's approval, and lawyers are still arguing over whether the city even has the authority to raise its own wage floor at all. Gothamist put it in one line back in March. It isn't entirely clear whether the city even has the power to do this on its own. So think about what that means about the promise. By 30 was sold as something a mayor delivers. $20 in 2027, $23.50 in 2028, $27 in 2029, $30 in 2030, indexed to cost of living after that. A 4-year stare. Case with his name on it. But the staircase was never his to build. It sits in a legislature he doesn't sit in, 150 miles up the Hudson. There's a difference between a man who tells you he'll fix your roof and a man who tells you he'll mention it to the landlord. Both sentences sound like help. Only one of them is, and it isn't only Albany. The bill still has to get through a city council led by Speaker Julie Meenan, a moderate Democrat. When Gothamist asked her office in March, her spokesman said the speaker looks forward to reviewing this legislation. Reviewing. Again. Same word, different office. Understand the room we're describing. A Democrat mayor, a Democrat speaker, a council where Democrats hold the overwhelming majority of seats, all reviewing a bill written by a Democrat councilwoman to deliver a promise the Democrat mayor ran on. Nobody in that sentence is a Republican. There is no opposition in that building large enough to stop anything. So why keep the slogan? Because the slogan worked. It won an election in a city where more than 1 million people make $17 an hour. You don't retire a phrase like that, you just stop putting a date on it. And now, let's talk about what's actually in the bill. Because almost nobody was reading the back pages while the front page number was generating arguments. The number on the front is $30. The number that closes doors is further in. Buried in the legislation is a change to how tipped workers get paid. It would eliminate the tipped wage credit for New York City restaurants. Right now, an owner can count a portion of a server's tips toward meeting the minimum wage. Strike that credit and the owner is on the hook for the full hourly rate. Every server, every shift, tips or no tips. The businesses that feel this first are not the steakhouses. They are the 8 table places with 1 owner, 1 cook, and a nephew washing dishes on weekends. Jessica Walker, president of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, said it in one sentence. This is not a raise for workers. It is a closing notice for businesses. Tom Gretsch, Queens Chamber of Commerce, did the math on camera. $30 an hour, 2,000 hours a year. That's $60,000 plus benefits. He said you're going to see businesses close and a lot fewer hires. Now I want to be fair, because the other side has real numbers too. MIT's living wage calculator puts a living wage for a single adult in New York City at $31.50, 50 cents above what this bill even asks for. The Economic Policy Institute projects that 1.68 million New Yorkers, over 36% of the city's wage-earning workforce, will still be earning under $30 an hour in 2030. The people pushing this didn't invent the problem. The city really is that expensive. But a Harvard Business School study found that a $1 minimum wage increase raises a median restaurant's chance of closing by 14%. This bill is $13. And it lands in the same year the region hosts the World Cup, the event the hospitality industry has been building toward for a decade, against a $5.4 billion budget gap. So who benefits from a bill this heavy that nobody in charge will claim? Nobody. It just sits there collecting reviews. And here's the part that's on tape. Before the election, Mamdani sat down with Morning Joe. Not a hostile room, the friendliest national television he was ever going to get. Willie Geist asked him directly, "Take this to the guy who owns the dry cleaner, the woman who owns the nail salon. They say they can't afford $30 an hour. How do you explain that?" Mamdani had an answer ready. He said it would be phased in over a longer period of time for small businesses, as is typically done when you raise a minimum wage. Now here's the thing about that answer. Sandy Nurse's bill has exactly that. Large employers reach $30 in 2030. Small employers get until 2032. The longer phase-in for small businesses is written into the text. It's the specific accommodation he promised on national television, drafted into law by a member of his own party. He gave the answer. Somebody wrote his answer into a bill. Then, his office started reviewing it. There are 4 corners to this pattern, and now you can see all of them. A promise that was never his to keep because the wage is set in Albany. A bill he won't publicly claim in a building his own party controls completely. Fine print that lands hardest on the smallest shops in the city. And a question he already answered on tape, on his favorite network, a year before any of it reached his desk. The coalition that campaigned for him, Raise Up New York, working with the labor group Align, put it on their own website. Mayor Mamdani supported raising the minimum wage to $30 by 2030 in his campaign affordability agenda, and voters turned out in historic numbers to elect him. Now it's time to deliver. That's not the Manhattan Institute. That's not Fox News. That's the people who knocked on doors for him. And then came a Thursday in July. Same building, different bill, different speed. July 16th, 2026. The New York City Council voted 42-6 to give itself a raise. Council members go from $148,500 a year to $175,500. The mayor's salary rises to $358,800. Retroactive to January 1st, in effect in 45 days. Cost to the city, $2.6 million this year, $17 million next year, against multi-billion-dollar deficits across the next 4. Now, I'm going to be straight with you, because the honest version of this is worse than the cheap version. Mamdani turned his down. He said he hadn't knocked on anyone's door in New York City where the concern was that the mayor makes too little. He should have. Good. He was right to. But look at what he found his voice for. Clear, fast, public, decisive. On the raise that was his, he had an answer the same day. On the raise that belonged to 1 million people making $17 an hour, 4 months after they stood on those steps and asked for it, the answer was still that the administration is reviewing it. The difference between a promise and a prior is how fast the vote happens. One raise took an afternoon. The other one is in its 5th month of review. Now you've got the whole timeline in one piece. Most people watching the news will get the pay raise story one night and the wage story another night and never lay them side by side. You just did. That's not a broken promise. That's a promise that was never put on the calendar. Go back to those steps on March 10th. The crowd, the bill, the slogan finally written down, and the sentence the man inside that building used to say everywhere he went. Right now, if you are earning a minimum wage in this city, you simply cannot afford to continue calling it your home. We have to change that. $17 an hour. He's still reviewing whether he agrees. Now, I want to hear from you. Where did it click? Was it the 2 spokeswomen saying the same sentence 2 weeks apart, the answer he'd already given on tape, or the Thursday in July when the other vote took an afternoon? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this breakdown gave you the full picture on something most coverage keeps in separate boxes, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet, because we lay things side by side that the nightly news keeps apart. See you in the next one.